Hi, everyone. Welcome to this week's Talon Talks. My name is Melissa. I'm going to be your host for today's episode. And joining us today, we have Jacob, Pia, Olivia, and Daniel. And today is really exciting because it's the first of a series of Talon Talks focused on literature. So that's books, poetry, and short stories, just to name a few. I thought we'd kick things off by introducing ourselves. So just to give a little background, if you can tell us whether you've always liked to read or whether it's more of a recent interest, and if there's a book or story that got you into reading. And I can go ahead and start us off. So as I mentioned before, my name is Melissa. I'm the outreach coordinator for the Talon, and I'm an English major at MSJC. I've loved reading for as long as I can remember. I think it's hard to really pinpoint a specific book that got me into reading, but I do have really fond memories of books from when I was really young, like The Very Hungry Caterpillar, which I'm sure a lot of us read, which I checked out from my school library so much that they told me I wasn't allowed to anymore because it was below my reading level. But the first chapter books that really captured my imagination were The Magic Tree House.
Oh my gosh.
That one's a good series.
Such a good series. That was my childhood. Jeez.
Well, Jacob, do you want to go ahead and tell us about yourself?
Sure. Okay, so my name is Jacob, as has been established. I am a digital media and 3D modeling major at MSJC. I have always loved reading, from when I first got into public school, which was a little bit later than other kids. I was just immediately gravitated towards books and comics and any kind of material, any media I could get my hands on. I was like, yes, let's go. I can escape from my life and just live in this world of fantasy and kind of be a part of the characters' lives, through reading about them. The first, I guess, series of books that really impacted my life was the Harry Potter series. I'm sure a lot of us have read that, and I tell you, you could not take that series away from me for $1 million unless, you're like, okay, well, you can take this money and buy the series, but I wasn't thinking that far ahead. But yeah, I love the Harry Potter books. Read them 6 or 7 times in the first year or two that I got into them. And after that, I kind of just never looked back from reading. It's always been a big part of my life. And yeah, it's
What's your favorite Harry Potter book?
Deathly Hallows, 100%.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know a lot of people like Prisoner of Azkaban and like Goblet of Fire. Those are all good books, but something about the way Rowling told the stories of the 3 brothers with the 3 Deathly Hallows, that just it almost set my brain on fire in a good way. It was really my first introduction to more adult themes, not like, okay, that sounded wrong. Okay, more mature themes in books, dealing with death and struggle and travesty, all these different things, and it really captured my interest. So yeah, Deathly Hallows, definitely.
Nice.
Yeah, I can definitely identify with that experience reading those books. Olivia, would you like to go next?
Sure. So, hi everyone. I am Olivia. I'm the president of the Talon. I'm an English major, but my enjoyment of reading really began in elementary school. I used to read a ton of the library books at my school, and I would save like the piece of paper I used as a bookmark, and then I ended up with like a whole collection of these bookmarks that had like I would put like a little review of the book and like say if I liked it or not. So I really cherished that, and as a kid, the book fair at school really got me into reading. But I feel like the book that really got me back into reading, because there was kind of a bit of a lag there for me in middle school, was rereading The Little Prince. I have a very deep connection with that book. I think there's a lot that we can learn from, rereading it throughout our lives. But yeah, it started in elementary school, and then I guess high school is really when I picked it back up again.
So
Nice.
I didn't read The Little Prince until about a year or two ago, and I was surprised at how emotional it made me as an adult.
Absolutely. Yeah.
I honestly have not read it. Should I? I'm really
Oh,
interested by the way
yeah.
you guys are talking.
Yeah, definitely.
And
Yes.
I'm writing down like a little books to consider list right now, and it just went down.
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a really short read. And speaking of mature themes, I think it packs a lot into such a short kid's book.
Right.
Okay.
Pia, would you like to go next?
Sure. I'm Pia. I'm vice president for the Talon, and I feel like I've been reading for forever. I started off reading I got a Hans Christian Andersen fairy tale book for Christmas one year, and I read it so much that my mom was like, okay, go ahead and pick another book that you want to read for next Christmas. And I asked for a Nancy Drew book. And luckily enough, my aunt had the entire collection. So I think I was about 6 or 7 when I started reading that series, and I think I finished it around like 4th grade. How old are you in 4th grade? I'm not too sure.
9 or 10.
Okay, yeah, around there. So that's kind of been my introduction to reading, and ever since then it's just kind of been, I don't know, random books that people recommend, or random books recommended on Kindle or Amazon. So yeah, how about you, Daniel?
Nice. Hey guys, I'm Daniel. I'm the social media manager for the Talon. For me, I've been reading for fun for about 3 years now. I think what got me back into it was just remembering the feeling of getting caught into a really good book, transporting kind of from our world and our reality into the author's reality, which was pretty cool.
It was really cool.
Yeah, I think kind of going back to what Olivia said, I read a lot when I was little, and then kind of one day I just remembered how reading made me feel, and thinking of all the benefits of it, and I just started reading again. So
do you have a book you're currently reading?
Currently not right now. I have a book that I want to get into.
Okay, which one is
Yeah.
it?
It's Dave Grohl's autobiography. Dr. Weber
Ooh.
was reading it. She recommended it. I'm a big Dave Grohl fan, so I'm really excited for that. He's kind of his experiences of growing up in the 90s music industry. So
Mhm.
it should be pretty interesting to read.
Yeah, that sounds interesting.
Yeah.
I might steal that idea. That's a good recommendation.
Yeah.
I know. Yeah, Daniel, that's a good idea. I'm gonna write down the recommendations right now.
Yeah.
too. Cool. So it seems like we all have a long history with reading, even if there are kind of gaps here and there, which I've definitely also had with more or less reading. But moving on to our current interest and favorite things to read now, does anyone have any favorite genres or authors or even themes in the books that you read?
I would say generally, I like picture books. A lot of zines, magazines, art books, just kind of taking a deeper look into the artist. Some books will even give you some words from the artist and some quotes. So I think that stuff's pretty cool, just kind of seeing what the artist was going through while they were creating this art piece. I would also say kind of adventure books or quest books, when reading the main characters battling something, or he's trying to get from point A to point B. I always like those books.
Mhm. Those are always fun.
Yeah, I don't read a lot of photography or art books, but that definitely is something that's interested me. I just haven't explored it. Do you have any recommendations, Daniel?
Not really. I would just say anything that you can get your hands on, just kind of taking a deeper dive into looking at photographs and looking at art and stuff and really thinking of how it makes you feel. I've had this Linda McCartney book called I think it's like her Polaroid diary. But basically Linda McCartney, she's Paul McCartney's husband or wife. And she's taken like a bunch of Polaroids of basically Paul and their family and just a bunch of different things going around London as well as, California, all these different places, and taking a bunch of Polaroids, and, just seeing those things is pretty cool to me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Oh, I also actually, I think it was last year, maybe 2 years ago, started kind of collecting artist books or kind of picture books.
Yeah.
If you guys are ever looking for a good spot for art books, the Menifee Art Gallery or like the thrift store next to it, they always have a pretty big selection of art books. So
Best thing.
yeah,
Sorry.
if you guys are interested.
Nice. I'll have to check them out. I know there's one over in the outlets in Lake Elsinore that I like going to. I forget the name of it, but it's like the only bookstore there. So
Oh, I think I know what you're talking about. I only ever see it
Yeah,
when Spirit Halloween's open.
yeah.
I went there once. It's a cool store.
Yeah, no, it definitely is.
Hmm.
How about you, Jacob? Any favorite genres or authors or themes?
Oh, is my microphone working? I
Um,
was trying to talk earlier and it just stopped. Can you hear me?
We can hear
So
you
you're a
now.
little quiet. Yeah.
Yeah.
Someone else take the question for now. I'm gonna try and fix my microphone.
I
No
gotcha.
worries.
What about
about
you, Melissa? Is there any books that you've been really into or anything?
Yeah, absolutely. So I've been really into memoirs recently.
Okay.
Yeah, I loved Educated by Tara Westover. I wrote about that in my book review that's on the Talon website.
Mhm.
And I also really love Unorthodox by Deborah Feldman. They made a TV show about it. It's
Nice.
on Netflix. Yeah. And I also realized that I really like science fiction more recently since I've been exploring my interests. I kind of had a gap in my late teens and early 20s where I didn't read much. And now as an adult, I found that science fiction is something that I'm really into, especially when it involves philosophical themes that make us question our lives or just kind of our existence. So I really love Exhalation by Ted Chiang. It's a short story collection. You might be familiar with his work if you've ever watched the movie Arrival, because it's based on one of his stories from his collection called Stories of Your Life and Others. And it's really interesting because it involves a lot of linguistics. So
Interesting.
yeah, it combines a lot of really cool things that I'm into. And recently I found out that apparently there's a whole umbrella genre called speculative fiction, which might be more accurate to being my favorite genre because it involves fantasy, sci-fi, paranormal, and it's just kind of like taking what if scenarios and playing with those ideas. But it's kind of a broad category.
That's kind of cool. I've never heard of that genre.
Yeah,
So
me either.
That's awesome. I remember in middle school, I was really into science fiction. It was always cool to me just thinking about space and everything up there. So
Mhm.
Yeah, and science fiction is a really broad category too. So it's something that I'm really enjoying exploring right now.
Okay. Well, if you guys have any recommendations, please.
yeah,
I feel like science fiction was a genre that I never really got into or kind of never really explored. So it's always interesting hearing, I don't know, just I guess like the synopsis of the books people are reading about it. And I'm always like, oh, that sounds cool. But I don't know, I haven't found one that really like, do you guys know that feeling where you read a book and you can't put it down because it feels like you're picturing the movie or, the book as a movie?
yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah. So I don't know. I haven't had that yet with a sci-fi book, so we'll see.
Well, another author that kind of blends the sci-fi speculative lines is Ursula K. Le Guin. That's one of the ones that I've enjoyed and that I've seen while exploring this speculative fiction genre. So you might want to check them out.
Okay. I definitely will. I'll write that down.
I recently read The Lathe of Heaven, which is about someone who has the power to change reality with their dreams. And I thought that was such a cool idea that got explored.
Is that anything like the movie Inception? Is it that kind of thing?
Oh, interesting question.
Like a dream within a dream?
It's not necessarily like that. But it is to the point where what happens in dreams can affect reality.
Mm-hmm. Gotcha.
Yeah.
It's
It's
interesting.
also a shorter novel, so it's pretty accessible.
What was the name of that one?
The Lathe of Heaven, I think that's how it's pronounced. It's
Oh,
Lathe.
okay. Huh. I hadn't heard of that one. Was that sorry, was that one that you just read or that you're currently reading, or what was when did you read that?
I finished it recently, so I started reading it early on in the pandemic, and I don't remember why. I just kind of stopped. And then I picked it up recently on audiobook and just listened to the story over because I stopped with like 50 pages to go. I don't remember why. I just kind of dropped it. But it's something that's been on my mind that I never finished the story, and I really wanted to know how it ended. So I picked it up like 3 weeks ago and finished it.
Nice. Well, it's good that you finished it. Now you know how good a book it is.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to check out more of Le Guin's writing. I think that she's really talented.
Speaking of checking out an author's writing more, have you guys heard of I think it's Shirley, gosh, wait, I have to look up her name to make sure. Um, but one of her books was turned into a series on Netflix called Haunting of Hill House. It's
I
Shirley Jackson, and she writes more like horror mystery books.
I'm not familiar with her, but I have seen that show, so I know of it.
Is horror a genre that you're really big into?
Yeah, actually, it's kind of what brought me back into reading in high school. I kind of had like a brief moment of just stopping and being busy with other things, but I I don't know, I've always just enjoyed horror, like movies, shows, just entertainment media in general. So,
Mhm.
yeah, definitely a lot of horror books. I have a few from Stephen King. I just got Interview with the Vampire by Anne Rice. So it's going to be an interesting read.
Definitely. I'm also really big into like horror, though I've never honestly considered reading the books, which is kind of stupid, seeing as how big I am into reading as well. Um, I I don't know why I never really considered that until you mentioned that. Like it's Carrie, all the Shining, all these classic films were based off of the books. I'm so okay. Wow, I'm so stupid. I can't believe that just passed my mind. So you mentioned Stephen King. Do you have a favorite book of his?
I just finished reading The Girl Who Loved. Gosh, I'm so bad at names. I have to double check again.
The
Hugo,
Girl Who Loved Tom
if you're
Gordon.
here, please cut it out. Yeah. The Girl Who Loved Tom Gordon. Honestly, I think I started reading more horror stories when I got my Kindle.
Mhm.
And so I just finished that one from Stephen King, and one that I really loved. It's like a kind of like a mystery or like suspense book, but it's a series by Ted Decker. It's called Eyes Wide Open. There's 4 books in it, and that was one that I finished in like 2 days, like could not put it down.
Jeez.
Yeah, yeah.
Didn't they? Isn't Eyes Wide Open a show as well, or a movie or something? I could have sworn I've heard that before.
It might be. Honestly, even while reading it back then, I was like, this would make a really good like TV show or movie, because
Mhm.
everything was just so like, I don't know, just the way Ted Decker described each scene was like no detail was missed, type of thing.
Can you give us a little insight onto, the plot of the series?
Sure. So it kind of starts off with this girl who, she didn't really have a family, and she had one other friend, and they were meeting up at this abandoned building, which is kind of their usual spot, kind of. And just she fell down the stairs, and she fell into kind of this hole where it felt like her grave, was how she described it. And when she eventually got out, that abandoned building became like a psych ward or a mental institution. And she could not get out, and she didn't know how to get out, because they obviously like admitted her, because they were like, she looks like she's lost, she looks like she doesn't know what she's talking about. So it was kind of an interesting thing of this girl trying to get out of that and go back into her reality. And there's kind of like brief moments in the book where she started to question, like, is this what's actually real? Like, was my past life kind of a lie?
Mm-hmm.
So
That sounds
yeah.
very mind-bending, I guess you could say.
It is. It's very fun.
Nice. And was there more than one book, or is it just one book in that series?
There's 4 of them.
4. Okay. You read all of them?
I did.
Nice.
Did you guys? Nope. I was just wondering, did you guys ever read the Goosebumps series when you guys were younger?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That one was really good.
as much as I love horror nowadays,
Yeah.
as a kid, oh my God, I was scared out of my mind.
Yeah, no,
I
definitely.
I'd
Me
read
too.
like half of one of those, and they're only like, I don't know, 100 pages long at most
Yeah.
for the majority of them. I would be so scared. I could not sleep for days.
Yeah.
It was so sad, but I couldn't get
It's
enough of them.
it's really funny talking about reading and stuff right now, just kind of what's going through my mind and stuff. And I think back to when I was younger of reading like No David or A to Z Mysteries or Goosebumps or anything like that. And those books making me laugh and so many memories made within them. It was just kind of interesting to think about, and thinking maybe that's why we read just to kind of, I guess, get the feeling from the book, which is cool.
Definitely.
Yeah.
I never read Goosebumps, but
Really?
I know
Okay.
everyone around me did. One of my best
You're
friends in elementary school really was trying to convince me to, and I never
Yeah.
did.
You got to read at least like one book just
Yeah,
to
I
like give
kind
it
of
a
feel like I
try.
have to see what I was missing out on.
Yeah.
But I do have a lot of nostalgia for Animorphs.
Okay. Which one is that one? I would have to see like a book cover. Let me look it up.
Oh my gosh, you will recognize it
Oh,
when you see
oh
it.
no. Oh, I just looked it up as well. Really?
What?
Animorphs?
Did anyone
Oh,
read
okay.
Animorphs?
I
Interesting.
I always I used to go to this tiny little bookstore, and I would always see those in like the, I don't know if it was the kids section, but they had like this little corner with all the weird books in. And that was
They
always
are
the
weird.
that they were always at the front. And you were the person who would read those. Okay, I got it. I understand now. Okay.
Well, thinking back now, I feel like they kind of predicted some of my tastes because they're kind of dark. They've got some weird like alien plot going on. One of the cool things that I remember I loved about those is that the little corner in the bottom of the page, like when you flip through the pages, it would show you the like morphing of the kid into the animal. So you would flip the book and it'll show you the little progression. I always
Mhm.
thought that was the coolest thing.
Yeah,
That does sound pretty
I
cool.
like when books do that, little flip books in the corner page. That's nice.
I've never read this, but I'm looking at all of the covers, and this is definitely like the strangest kid book I've ever, like, cover wise. But honestly, I feel like this would definitely be a book that I'd ask my mom to get, and she'd be like, well, what is that?
How about you, Olivia? Did you read these? Am
Yeah.
I the only one?
No, I'm like trying to find a way to commentate, but I have not read any sort of like horror fiction or anything like that. So
What
definitely new things for sure for me.
what was your favorite genre reading growing up? Was it like
Hmm.
Diary of a Wimpy Kid? I
No,
remember
not
all
at
those
all,
books.
actually. I've never read that series either. But for me, it's mostly I would say narrative fiction, realistic fiction. I do like sort of the dystopian genre as well.
Oh yeah.
Um, and I'm more into like themes than I am authors. Like I really don't have a specific author I like, but as far as themes go, I really do like themes of duality and complexity and having contradictions and deep metaphors into what I'm reading and uh, kind of, I guess, human nature.
Yeah.
I really like those sort of books more
Did
so than
you
horror.
yeah. Did you ever have like that phase in middle school where you read a lot of it was like the Maze Runner books and the Hunger Game books and stuff? I remember everyone was reading those when
So more so kind of like 1984,
okay.
Fahrenheit 451, Brave New
Hmm.
World, like that sort of I guess group of books than Maze Runner and Hunger Games and Divergent, those sort of series. Yeah.
Yeah. I always like the Percy Jackson series as well.
Oh yes, yeah.
Yeah.
I also really enjoy kind of that idea of, I feel like part of what you were describing is the human condition.
Right, yes.
Have you read Emily St. John Mandel's books?
I have not, no, but I've heard of them.
I think you
I've
might
heard of
like
those
them.
books, yeah.
Yeah, they're very emotionally complex. They have a lot of these concepts of the human condition and relationships, and they're all kind of sad. I think they have this streak of melancholy, and
Yeah.
I would not say that these books are for people who want a happy ending, but
Oh, okay.
they're definitely very complex.
Do you have a favorite?
I really enjoyed The Glass Hotel.
Oh, okay. I'm gonna have to make a list too now. Very cool.
This is a really random question, but do you guys like reading kind of those cheesy, like teen romance books, like The Fault in Our Stars and stuff? Like,
Can't
was
say
that
I've
ever a
ever-
phase?
I can't say I've ever read any of those.
Okay.
Not quite my thing.
I
Not
don't think it was.
personally.
I don't think it was like The Fault in Our Stars for me. I think it was more like just like Maze Runner and like those teen books and stuff. I had like a phase in middle school where I really liked those books.
Okay. How about you, Olivia or Melissa?
Not me. No, I I have never read Fault in Our Stars. I've seen the movie, but I don't know. I definitely do like some romance sort of genres, but I tend to, like I said, go towards like the deeper human condition genre more than like, I guess, romance and relationships in that way.
Mhm.
Yeah, I feel like I tend to agree now. I definitely really loved a lot of a lot of young adult novels that had romance as an aspect. When I was younger, oh gosh, what are they called? Are you familiar with the Shadowhunter series from Cassandra Clare?
I am, yes.
Those were my favorites in middle school. Definitely not my taste anymore, but I love them. This was the same era when Twilight was coming out, and I read them in middle school too. That was totally my jam back in the day.
Okay. I don't know. I feel like they're always like an easy read for me, but they're predictable. And at the same time, it kind of like gets you back in reading. Like whenever I'm in a rut, I feel like, I don't know, like especially young adult. I don't know. Have you guys heard of Taylor Jenkins Reid?
Mm-mm.
Oh, she wrote The Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which I feel like is her more popular book. But kind of that genre is, I don't know, it gets me back into reading, I feel like. So
I actually love that you mentioned that, because that's not my genre for that purpose, but I read a lot of thrillers that I don't tend to talk about often because I can't even say that I like them very much. But for some reason I can really get through them like a lot faster than a lot of books. I have ADHD and I really struggle with reading and focusing on more than a few pages at a time. And for some reason, these books just fly by. And by the end, I'm frustrated and the plot was predictable and I didn't like any of the characters, but I read it. So I keep reading them.
I know exactly what you mean, because it's like I have a ton of those books, but whenever I find a book that I'm really interested in, I'm like, why can't I finish it? I don't understand. And then I get one of these new books and it's gone within like a day.
Does anyone else have a genre like that? Like nice and safe and things you can come back to?
uh it- yeah. That's one way to describe it, nice and safe.
I don't know, like
Talking
you know
about-
what you're getting. You know what you're getting into.
It's like a comfort series. You just read
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
It's like mom's chicken noodle soup. It's not great, but you know, you'll eat it, I guess.
Exactly.
That's the first
Yeah.
time I've heard of a book series that you don't like, but you just read it anyway. All right. No, I honestly it never happened. When I don't like a book, I'll give it, you know, I mean, from the point of when I start to dislike it, I'll give it maybe another 50 pages, depending on how long it is. And if after that I still don't like it, I'm like, okay, moving on, done. I don't want to read you anymore. And then I never touch it again. Or sometimes okay, I take that back. I have a really bad habit with like picking something up, doesn't really matter what it is, a book, a TV show, or you know, a hobby or whatever. We'll get into it really hardcore, and then I won't touch it for like 2 years. And then I come back to it and I'm like, oh my God, this is the best thing ever. How could I not enjoy this? And I just binge it. So I guess in a way I kinda have that, kinda not really. I will say sometimes I'll be reading a book that I know that I like, for instance, like the Harry Potter books. I know it's a really good story. I like the characters. I like where it's going. But then I just get so bored at one point and my eyes just kind of skip over the pages. I'm like, yeah. Okay, get on to the good part. Do you guys ever do that with a book? If you kind of know what's coming, just kind of skip ahead, skim through it.
Sometimes, I don't know. I mean, yeah, sometimes, but I typically come back and finish what I hadn't read.
Yeah, sometimes I feel guilty, even though it's a book and it doesn't have feelings. I'm just like, oh my God, I skipped through. What if there's something important in this one half of a paragraph that I skipped through?
Exactly.
Yeah, I get that.
Yeah, I understand that. I have a few books that I have not finished, and it's just been staring at me in my room. And I feel bad, but then I know eventually I will. But yeah, I definitely can understand where you're coming from.
It's funny you guys mentioned that because I feel like that's my my typical way of reading. I
Mhm.
don't know if I just learned how to read from, but I'll skip over like sentences, sometimes full paragraphs, and then I keep reading the book. And when they mention something, I'm like, wait, I must have missed it. And I just go back a few pages and reread the pages I missed. And I'm like, why did I skip them in the first place?
Yeah, I hate when that happens.
Yeah.
It's awful. God damn it! I knew I shouldn't have skipped.
Olivia, I have another sad book
Oh,
recommendation that
perfect.
just popped into my head. Have you ever read Never Let Me Go?
No, I haven't, but I see where he's going with this.
It's by Kazuo Ishiguro. It's phenomenal. Highly recommend. And there's a movie too that's really good, so you can watch that after.
Oh, okay. I might have heard of this before. I'll definitely have to look into it. Thank you.
Yeah, it's fairly popular. If anyone else likes sad books, something that's gonna rip your heart out.
My life is sad enough already. I'm good.
Speaking of sad books,
Oh,
have you
God.
guys read or watched the Glass Castle?
No.
That was a book that was introduced to me, I think, my junior year of high school, and I swear I read it like 3 or 4 times after reading it the first time.
Hmm.
It's I definitely recommend it.
I'm writing it
Well,
down.
give us a rundown on what it's about, because I don't think anybody has read that. Give us a brief summary.
So it's about kind of a dysfunctional family where there's two siblings, like an alcoholic dad and a mom who's kind of trying to make things work. And it's kind of a back and forth of these kids trying to run away and build a better life for themselves, but then always coming back to their family. And it was just, I like, the biggest part of the plot and kind of why it's called Glass Castle was because they were living on a piece of land that was very expensive, but they didn't have much. Like, they lived in a very small home that was falling apart, but they held on to the land and they found it was more important because that's where they wanted to build like their dream home
Mhm.
kind of thing. So it was just like, it broke my heart rereading it. So yeah, I don't want to spoil too much of the book, but I think that was a pretty big one that I was like, oh, that makes sense. It's like they're holding on to this fantasy rather than, kind of being able to realistically live.
Right. Wow. It sounds like a good book. Don't get me wrong. I don't think I'm gonna read it because that hits a little close to home. I don't know if I need that right now.
No, fair enough. It's definitely not like a light read.
Yeah. Oh man. A dysfunctional family, alcoholic father, my brother and sister, you said, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, wow. That's like, are they writing about me? Like
Oh no.
somebody shadowing me? Oh God, what is going on?
I'm
I'm good.
interested. I'm writing it down.
Glass Castle.
It's also a movie, so if you guys
Oh, cool.
ever don't feel like reading, I understand. The movie is just as great, but
I love the experience of reading something and then getting to watch it. I don't know why it feels like such a complete full circle. I don't know, just getting to see what you read brought to life and getting to see it adapted like that is really fun. So
oh, I completely understand. Oddly
So-
enough, that's what I did with Twilight.
oh yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
Okay, you mentioned Twilight. I have to ask. Okay. Oh, okay. Every woman that I've ever talked to has said that they love the Twilight books and or the Twilight movies, right? Nothing, no, I got no problem with that. I'm not a fan of them personally, but I want to know what exactly it is that is so alluring about those books and movies. I don't get it. Can you please explain?
I will just quickly say, for me, it's just like a comfort thing as far as like the atmosphere of like it being in Washington. It's rainy. I mean, if you watch the first movie, it's very different from the other ones, for instance. It's very, green and gray and blue. And for me, it's just kind of comforting in that sense. And it's like kind of like that cheesy romantic drama, like your guess how would you call it, like your binge type of series, whether you read it or you watch it. So that's kind of what it is for me. I don't really enjoy it to see like the relationship development as much as it's just like honestly humorous. Like the first one is so funny. If you watch the movie after reading the book, like just the way that everything happens and all the little things, like it's more so funny than it is like a romance movie for me.
Mhm.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
that makes sense.
It's kind of funny you mentioned that because I definitely wrote a paper about kind of vampires and Twilight,
Mhm.
but
And you're not sharing it with us?
um
We're-
well, kind of the same with Olivia. Like, it definitely was a childhood thing for me. Like, I am not gonna lie, I tried rewatching the movies like a few months ago, and I was like, there is no way I was this obsessed with it as a kid. So I don't know. I think there's just, I mean, vampires are meant to have that sort of likable appeal to them, despite them being like technically monsters. And I thought that Twilight did a really good job at that, at kind of, bringing back like modern vampires and kind of rewriting their history a little bit as compared to like, the vampires that we normally know of, like Dracula and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that regardless of whether you think the books are good, regardless of whether or not they were your taste, they did something. They adapted the vampire trope into this teen romance genre in a really interesting and different way. And for me, they were the epitome of the trashy teen romances that I liked.
Oh, absolutely.
I mean, they had a love triangle. They had the whole, is she gonna pick her lover, her best friend? It was what I recognize now, not a healthy relationship, but as a teenager, I thrived off of that.
Mhm.
And the movies are, I'm so sorry if anyone genuinely enjoys them as films, but they're my favorite bad movies to watch. I
Yes,
will rewatch them
absolutely.
any day.
I understand.
They're funny.
They
Like,
are.
if you watch it, they're like sincere, which makes it funny.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, at some point you wonder if they're self-aware.
Mhm.
I don't know if you guys ever watched kind of like the behind the scenes of making the Twilight movies, but like
No.
whenever I rewatch them, I just think about the fact that whenever they do the running scenes, it's just they pick a spot in a foresty area and they just put a treadmill on the ground and kind of record from different angles. And it's like, okay, I guess it's effective.
How interesting. I did not know that.
The
Mhm.
CGI
It's funny. Yes.
Oh, geez. So kind of coming back to books.
Oh yeah.
I'm wondering, Pia, you mentioned reading on your Kindle, and I'm wondering how everyone prefers to read their books, because I love audiobooks, but I know that there's a kind of a debate with whether or not audiobooks count as reading.
Well,
I'm
sorry.
you go ahead. You go ahead.
I definitely have a Kindle, but I still prefer like a good paperback. I am definitely one of those people who are like, the fresh book smell.
Oh yeah.
I feel like it's kind of just part of the reading experience, and also, yeah, I don't know. I never really got into like reading on my phone or even really like read on my Kindle for too long. Like I'll use that for travel and stuff for convenience, but still not preferred.
Let me ask you a question about something you said. Okay. You say you prefer physical books,
Yes.
right? But you said paperback. Is that like, are you saying you prefer paperback to hardcover or just physical in general? Because there is a big difference between hardcover and paperback, in my opinion.
Okay, I do prefer physical books, but I also am a paperback person just
Okay.
because it's
Okay.
easier.
Okay. You're one of those kind of people. All right.
Are you a hard book person?
Oh yeah, definitely hardcover all the way.
I
It just
have to
feels so much
ask
better
why.
Yeah. Why?
because it feels better in your hands. Does it not?
I
Like,
feel like
don't get me wrong. A paperback is great. I'd still take a paperback over like digital, but hardcover is you can't go wrong with it. What's your argument? Let me hear. Why do you like paperback more?
I feel like hardcovers are display books.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And that's what I like hardcovers for best. And I'm just so curious as to this whole concept of comfort. Paperbacks are way more comfortable for me. You can throw them around, you can bend the cover. I'm not one to care about, breaking the spine or anything. I'll toss them in my bag and fold them, whatever.
Mhm. Maybe that's where we differ. I don't like to destroy my books.
Yeah, I think that's like the beauty of it all is like if you're
Mhm.
more of an auditory learner, you can read or I guess listen to an audiobook. For me personally, I like paperbacks just because I like to underline and put little notes, and I know I'll come back to the book a second or third time.
Mhm.
But I think it really, as long as you're reading it, it's great, right?
Wait. Wait. Back up there. You're telling me you underline in the book? Like
Yeah, I
you're doing
mean,
this with a pencil, right? Please.
no, with a pen.
Oh,
Yeah, well, for me, like my favorite book I've bought several times because I underline and I put notes and then I read it again and think about it in a different way and want to put different notes in there. So yeah, sometimes when I read something and I pick up on like a metaphor or a deeper understanding of what I'm reading, I like to kind of put down what I'm thinking about it.
I love that.
Yeah,
all right.
I definitely do the same with my books.
Mhm.
Okay,
Well,
I'm
I
never
didn't know
lending
that I
any of you
love
my books.
Unusual.
Yeah, I didn't know that was like a controversial thing.
It really
Maybe,
is.
maybe it's not. I don't know. I've never heard anyone else say that, though I've never had this conversation before. But wow, I would no, you couldn't catch me dead doing that.
Well, I also think it's interesting, like, I don't know if you've seen like the small library local books, it's just like the box.
Mhm.
But if I find a book in there with writing, I think it's really interesting because then you're seeing it from your point and then seeing what somebody else thought about the book. So I think in that
Yes.
way it's also interesting too.
Mhm.
Mhm.
I agree with that. I I think I would be more inclined to see your perspective on this thing, on this topic. If my experience with seeing books being wrote in wasn't always the person just trashing the book
I
and like
understand that, yeah.
writing
Mhm.
constructive, notes or criticism or what have you. But really, the only time I've seen books have writing in them other than the authors was in a destructive mannerism. So
It's
Yeah. For me, it's just personal use. So I like to see kind of how I interpret things if I go back to it. But yeah, I definitely could see how it could be like destructive in a way. For that reason, I don't like to, destroy the book itself. But yeah, it's kind of like a introspective thing for me, I guess.
interesting, very interesting. I never considered doing that. Whenever I take notes on a book, it's with a sticky note or with a pad of paper separately, and I just write down the page number or what have you.
Yeah,
Um,
that works too.
but writing in the book, how do you find the space to write? And like, give me an example of something that you would write in a book.
Yeah, so my favorite book is Dandelion Wine by Ray Bradbury. Highly recommend it. And there's a lot of different meaning with the characters, and then also sometimes there's just a little phrase of dialogue that I think can be taken in a lot of different ways and held on to. So I'll underline it or I'll put a star and say like theme, nostalgia, or something like that. Something that if I go back to it, I know, oh, that is something that I want to remember because it's a big part of the book, or something that I connected to my personal life or something like that.
Mhm. So it's more of quick little quips than more so
Oh yeah.
notes.
Yeah, I'm not like full on annotating like you would for like a literature class or something. No, it's not.
Okay.
It's more so like the stuff that I really want to remember. Um, than like, oh, here's a new character, let me underline it.
Gotcha. Okay, that makes more sense to me. I can get behind that more. But when you described it earlier, I was like, she's taking notes on everything. Like,
No, no,
is
no.
she summarizing the pages? Like, what is
Oh
going on
gosh,
here?
no.
Okay, yeah, that makes more sense. Thank you for clarifying on that.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I feel like I interact with annotating books in a similar way where I like to jot down a thought, or more often than not, it's just highlighting a phrase that I really love or a word that I'm unfamiliar with. And that way I can look back and find those things quickly.
Yeah.
It's kind of funny that you guys are talking about this because recently, or at least I've been trying to like read all the books that Taylor Swift recommends, or the books where she says is inspired by a song, because then I'll read the books and I find like a line in the book where she uses it in a song, or it becomes like a lyric. And it's been my favorite thing, just highlighting those. And I feel like those are always fun, just kind of like interacting your favorite artists to like your favorite book and seeing all of the parallels with that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really cool.
So speaking of recommended books or books you plan on reading, are any of you guys working on a book right now or planning on one? Don't everybody speak at once.
I keep pausing, waiting for some other people, but I just finished reading The Nix by Nathan Hill. I really enjoyed it. It is a big book. It was over 20 hours on audiobook.
Jeez.
Yeah, I think it's something like 600 pages. But another one of the wonders of audiobook is that the story just kind of keeps going in the best way. Like you can kind of get comfortable and familiar, and you don't have to worry about, oh gosh, I slammed through this book in 2 days and now I have to find something else. So I find that really enjoyable. But yeah, it's cool. It's fiction. I'm trying to think of how to summarize this.
What was the name of the book again?
The Nix by Nathan Hill.
Nix.
It's fiction and kind of very broadly, but I don't think is a great description. It's about a literature professor who sets out to find out more about his past and his mother's past. And his mother abandoned him when he was a child.
Ooh,
Yeah,
dark.
it's kind of dark, but it's really funny. There's actually a lot of humor in the book, so I highly recommend it.
Nice.
I also just started, I've only read a little bit of it, but I really want to get back to it. Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. Has anyone heard of that?
Why We Sleep.
I have not.
That sounds either really edgy or not edgy at all. Which is it?
So it's actually a nonfiction book. Matthew Walker is a sleep researcher at UC Berkeley, and he's made it like his personal life mission to educate the public about sleep and why it's so important. And it's been really fascinating. I listened to a podcast where he kind of briefly delved into some of the stuff that he talks about in his book. So if anyone likes nonfiction and kind of science related stuff, again, highly recommend it.
Definitely.
Well,
Sound really
highly
interesting.
recommend it. I've only read a little bit of it, but
Yeah. What made you pick that one versus something else?
well, I'd heard a lot about it. I'd heard other people talking about it online, and then I listened to this podcast, which I wasn't sure how I was going to feel about it, but I ended up getting really into it. It was like an hour and a half. And I was just so fascinated, and I wanted him to go more in depth into everything he was talking about. So he talks about things like how sleep affects your brain. I'm sorry, how caffeine affects your brain and then your sleep.
Mhm.
And
Interesting.
he briefly delved into sleep aids, exercise, circadian rhythm. It's just so much that you don't think about how much goes into the quality of your sleep. And it really piqued my interest, and I decided I wanted to learn more.
What is the book called?
Why We Sleep.
Why We Sleep.
Mhm.
That definitely sounds interesting. For sure, yeah.
Yeah. He also has a podcast. So if that's more up to your speed.
I like podcasts. They're pretty okay, I'd say.
Mhm.
Wouldn't you guys agree?
I mean, we're on one right now, right?
Exactly. That's what I'm
Yeah.
saying. I was hoping for some more enthusiasm. Like, I
Love
don't know. I
podcasts.
don't really like podcasts.
How about anyone else? Are you guys reading something right now?
Well, I'm like in between several books that I've started and haven't finished. If you've heard of A Little Life, I know it's like pretty popular on
Oh, yes.
I'm kind of nervous to get through it because I know it's pretty heavy. But other than that, I'm also reading Damned and Beautiful by Fitzgerald. I just like sometimes going back to the more classic literature just to kind of reread about, the very descriptive language of Fitzgerald and other authors too. I would also like to read My Year of Rest and Relaxation. I've heard such great things. So yeah, and on top of that, all of the stuff I have to read for my literature classes. So it's kind of hard to get through a book right now.
Fair
But
enough. Fair enough. It is really difficult. You want to balance your school and reading. What
right, yeah.
you find interesting. Definitely.
Actually, I just reread. I'm not sure if it's a poem or more of a short story, but gosh, it's in German. So bear with me on pronunciation. But it's called Erlkönig by Schubert.
I know German, so I think I know what you're trying to say.
Yeah, it just translates to Elf King. And
Yeah.
I don't know, I think it's a really interesting story. I remember reading it back in high school when I took German, and I think that one is more just a comfort thing. But book-wise, I started on the prequel to We Were Liars. It's called Family of Liars by E. Lockhart. And I mean, I loved the first book, so big hopes for the prequel.
Very cool. How about you, Jacob? Anything?
Yeah, I am currently reading the second installment for the Witcher series by I'm not going to try and pronounce his first name. That's Polish. Okay. Last name Sapkowski. I'm sure you guys are familiar with The Witcher. Have you guys seen the Netflix show?
Yeah,
I've
I'm
heard of it.
familiar.
You've heard of it. you
Familiar
haven't
with the
seen it.
books and
Okay.
the game.
Gotcha. Okay. But yeah, I burned through the first book in about a week. That was last month, and I kind of fell in love with the series. And I'm working on the second book now. It's less of a novel and more of a compilation of short stories that revolve around Geralt, who is the Witcher. It's a fantasy. Is it? It is fantasy. It says on Google it's fantasy/history, which I don't know how much of the Witcher is history because it has to deal with like slaying fictional monsters. But okay, we'll go with that. It's history. I like reading history, guys. Yeah, but that has had my attention That's really all I've been doing for my free time, really, is just had my nose buried in that. I like to go to this little coffee shop down the road from my house and just escape from the world and everything I gotta deal with for a little bit. But that combined with like the games and the Netflix series that all came together at the perfect time for me is just kind of got thrown into it head over heels, and I never looked back.
Yeah, I've
Mhm.
heard really good things about that series.
Yeah, it's very good. I definitely recommend it. It's surprisingly, well, I don't know how much you guys know about it, but it's very, very easy to get into, even if you don't know anything about it. The writer kind of wrote the book in a way that it kind of goes into the stories assuming that you know who the characters are, without like giving a bunch of build up and background at the beginning, but sprinkled throughout you start to get to know the characters, and their backgrounds become more revealed, and by the end of it you feel like this, I know this person, it's my best friend Geralt, of course, my buddy, my friend. I don't know, it's something special and not something that I found in a lot of other books. I mostly read fiction, though I do read some nonfiction. My one of my other favorite books is by Neil deGrasse Tyson. He's a astrophysicist. He wrote Astrophysics for People in a Hurry, which is basically a book explaining astrophysics for your everyday person, and it kind of goes through the happenings of the universe, how the solar system was made, a lot of really technical things that are dumbed down into a very digestible format, and it's really interesting. I think that you might like it if you like more realistic. I mean, it's very realistic because it's nonfiction. But yeah, those two: Astrophysics for People in a Hurry and the Witcher series.
Awesome.
I've been meaning to read that one by Tyson for a while. I just haven't.
What
But
the heck?
maybe. Yeah, I know. This is my sign that I should start.
You-
I
you-
have it already.
Yeah. What are you doing? Get on it.
I know. I just remembered another book since we were talking about horror and vampires. Recently, I read Woman Eating. Let me see, who's the
Oh,
author? By Claire Coda. It's their debut novel, and I really enjoyed it. So if either you or you also, Olivia, if you're interested in reading something that's it was really interesting. It was horror, but it was also it felt a lot more mature. It wasn't like a teen romance at all. It was very different.
sorry,
Interesting.
what was it called?
Woman Eating by Claire Coda.
Okay, writing
Yeah.
it down.
So there's, out of the four of us here,
Mhm.
only three of us like horror, right? Who was it that didn't like horror? Was it Olivia? Is that you?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, I guess it's not that I don't like it. I just have never really had interest in reading it. And so therefore I've just never been inclined to when I, look at books at the bookstore. It's kind of just a genre I stay away from, but I definitely could see the intrigue of it for sure.
Mhm.
This book was pretty mild, I think, compared to, I mean, considering it as a horror book. I think you might like it, Olivia, based on how you described your interest.
Okay. Yeah, I'll definitely have to check it out then.
Would you describe it more of as a psychological book or more horror?
Yeah, there's definitely a psychological element. You spend a lot of time with the main character and kind of hearing their introspections and hearing them kind of talk about their life.
Oh, okay. I mean, I do like more psychological things as far as like with books. So I definitely think that I could get into for sure.
Yeah, a big psychological element to it for sure. So I'm wondering, kind of looking forward, does anyone have any books that they are interested in getting into or something that they want to try?
Yeah, I want to get more into nonfiction. It's something I kind of dabbled with here and there, as I mentioned before, but primarily have always read fiction, so definitely wanted to get more into nonfiction stories. Any recommendations besides what we've talked about already? No? Okay.
I don't know if I have any nonfiction
Sorry, I
stories
was
to
thinking.
recommend. Yeah, me too.
No worries.
Yeah, I mean, I mentioned I really enjoy memoirs as far as nonfiction goes, but I don't know if I have any like shorter recommendations.
Length of the novel does not bother me. I have no
Okay.
issue with reading, 1,600 pages. That's fine. Give me a memoir. Any memoir.
Well, I loved Educated, which I mentioned earlier. I would definitely recommend that.
Educated. All right, I'll write that down. Thank you.
How about you, Pierre Olivia?
Kind of like what Olivia mentioned earlier, just kind of going back to reading a lot of the classics. I feel like people always talk about them and I'm like, oh, those sound like really good plots for stories, but I never got around to reading all of them. So right now I just got The Scarlet Letter. So after Family of Liars, I'm definitely gonna have that on my reading.
Very cool. I
Yeah.
read that in high school.
Did-
And
How was it?
it was interesting. I definitely could see like a lot of symbolism in there. That kind of is what I connected with more so. Um, the plot's great too as well, but yeah, more so the symbolism, and then the novels that I also read that year of high school kind of all tied into like why I like to go back to classic literature sometimes. But yeah, as far as like what I'm looking forward to reading in the future, I actually am wanting to switch more to like more modern works. So not just in books, but also poetry and short stories. I've read a lot of different things since I have 3 literature classes this semester. So
Ooh.
I know. But in reading that and reading what I have for classes, I've definitely looked into more works that the authors that we've discussed, what they do. And yeah, so honestly, just widening my scope of what I'm reading is kind of what I'm looking forward to.
Okay.
Nice. Yeah, I'm really interested in I am really interested in banned books and challenged books, but I feel like I haven't read that many, so I would definitely like to read more of those. And I'm interested in getting more into graphic novels. and comic books. I recently read the first issue of The Sandman, and I would like to continue that. I thought it was really good. By Neil Gaiman.
Okay, interesting.
All right. Well, before we close out, I would really like to ask everyone if you could only recommend one book to anyone listening, what would it be?
Uh-oh.
Just one.
Ah.
Ooh.
Oh no. Give me a minute here.
No worries.
I guess I'll go really quick. I already mentioned it. It is an older one, sort of. I guess it's not new, but Dandelion Wine by Ray Bradbury is probably hands down my favorite book. It's really nice for springtime and summertime. Although I'm not going to spoil it too much, but although it heavily focuses on the life experiences of a 12-year-old boy during the summertime, it really does address challenging aspects of life and time, similarly to The Little Prince, in the sense that the descriptions and the characters from an older perspective, discussing this with a younger boy, there's a lot of life lessons and deeper understandings of certain situations, and it's truly a joy to read. So yeah, I would definitely recommend that one.
Awesome. I think I would have to recommend Exhalation by Ted Chiang, which I believe I also mentioned earlier. It's just so unique. It's several different stories, and each one is very different, and his writing is just so smart. His ideas are so cool, and I love that it incorporates a lot of science fiction and a lot of philosophical ideas that really make you think about life and relationships. So I don't think I've read anything else like it, and I would love to read more of his stuff. So please support him. Please read more.
Awesome.
Awesome. Yeah.
And you, Pia?
Actually, one book that I finished fairly recently was The Anthropocene Reviewed by John Green. It's less of a novel and more of just like a collection of short stories about kind of everything or everyday things in life that you don't really look at. And it gave me a better perspective and just made me more aware of my surroundings. And I feel like it's kind of one of those feel good things that's like, appreciate everything around you. So I feel like I always read it and go back to it. How about
Nice.
you?
Oh boy, what a big question. There is so many. I think that as much as I love fiction, not that this book is not fiction, I would say The Catcher in the Rye. It's not my favorite book, and it's not really a book that I would read again for fun, but it is a book that I think that everyone should read, because of the themes and the maturity that the book requires to understand and comprehend. I think that everyone should read the book. Yeah, just as I know that it's something that a lot of students are supposed to read in like middle school or high school. And I think that's great. I never read it in middle school or high school. I read it after, just on my own, and I was like, wow, okay, that was a lot. But I'm glad that I did it. And yeah, that would be my recommendation, The Catcher in the Rye.
Awesome.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much for those recommendations, and thank you all for being here. And thank you to everyone listening. You can follow us on social media at MSJC Talon and visit our website at msjctalonnews.com.
Awesome.
Woo!
Thank
All
you,
right.
everyone.
Yeah.